child of the pure and clouded brow and dreaming eyes of wonder. Though time be fleet, and I and thou are half a life asunder, thy loving smile will surely hail the love gift of a fairy tale. I have not seen thy sunny face, nor heard thy silver laughter, no thought of me shall find a place in thy young life's hereafter. Enough that now thou wilt not fail to listen to my fairy tale. A tale begun in other days when summer suns were glowing, a simple chime that served to time the rhythm of our rowing, whose echoes live in memory yet, though envious years would say forget. Come, hearken then, ere voice of dread, with bitter tidings laden, shall summon to unwelcome bed a melancholy maiden. We are but older children dear, who fret to find our bedtime near. Without the frost, the blinding snow, the storm wind's moody madness, within the firelight's ruddy glow, and childhood's nest of gladness, the magic word shall hold thee fast, thou shalt not heed the raving blast. And though the shadow of a sigh may tremble through the story, for happy summer days gone by, and vanished summer glory, it shall not touch with breath of veil the pleasance of our fairy tale. Here is a chess problem at the beginning of the book. This is Through the Looking Glass and what Alice found there, and I shall be doing a short series full of me reading each of the chapters. No more than a chapter at a time, though. I will read the preface, which belongs to this particular problem, and the preface reads as such. As the chess problem given on the previous page has puzzled some of my readers, it may be well to explain that the correctly worked out, so far as the moves are concerned. The alternation of red and white is perhaps not so strictly observed, as it might be in the castling of the three queens, is merely a way of saying they have entered the palace, but the check on the white king at move 6, the capture of the red knight at move 7, and the final checkmate of the red king will be found by anyone who will take the trouble to set the pieces and play the moves as directed, to be strictly in accordance with the laws of the game. The new words in the poem Jabberwock have given rise to some differences of opinion as to the pronunciation, so it may be well to give instructions on that point as well. Pronounce slithy as if it were the two words sly and the. Make a hard G in gyre and gimble, and pronounce wrath as if to rhyme with bath. And Chapter 1. Looking Glass House. One thing was certain, that the white kitten had nothing to do with it. It was entirely the black kitten's fault. For the white kitten had been having its face washed by the old cat for the last quarter of an hour, and bearing it pretty well considering. So you see it couldn't have had any hand in the mischief. The way Dinah washed her children's faces was this. First, she held the poor thing down by its ear with one paw, and then, with the other paw, she rubbed its face all over, the wrong way, beginning with the nose, and just now, as I said, she was hard at work on the white kitten, which was lying quite near, and trying to purr, no doubt feeling that it was all meant for its good. But the black kitten had been finished with earlier in the afternoon, and so Alice was sitting curled up in the corner of the great armchair, half talking to herself and half asleep. The kitten had been having a grand game of romps with the ball of worsted. Alice had been trying to wind up, and had been rolling it up and down until it had come undone again, and there it was spread all over the all knots and running after its tail in the middle. "Oh, you wicked, wicked little thing!" Alice cried, trying to catch up to the kitten, giving it a little kiss to make it understand that it was disgraced. "Really, Dinah, you ought to have taught your children better manners. You ought, Dinah, you know you ought," she added, looking reproachfully at the old cat and speaking in a criss-cross voice as she could manage. And then she scrambled back into the armchair, taking the kitten and rushed with her, and began whining. She didn't get on very fast, as she was thinking all the time, sometimes to the kitten and sometimes to herself. Kitty sat demurely on her knee, pretending to watch the progress of the winding, and now and then putting one paw gently touching the ball as if it would be glad to help if it might. "Do you know what tomorrow is, Kitty?" Alice began. "You'd have guessed if you'd been up in the window with me, only Dinah was making you tidy, so you couldn't. I was watching the boys getting in sticks for the bonfire, and it wants plenty of sticks, Kitty. Oh, it got so cold, and it snowed so, they had to leave off. Never mind, we'll go and see the bonfire tomorrow." Here Alice wound 2 or 3 turns of the worst around the kitten's neck, just to see how it would look. This led to a scramble, in which the ball rolled down onto the floor again, and yards got unwound again. "Do you know, I was so angry, kitten," Alice went on as soon as they were comfortably settled again, "when I saw all you had been doing. I'm nearly opening the window and putting you out into the snow, and you'd have deserved it. You little mischievous darling. What have you got to say for yourself now? Don't interrupt me," she went on, holding one finger up. "I'm going to tell you all of your faults. Number 1, you squeaked twice while Dinah was washing your face this morning. Now you can't deny it, Kitty. I heard you. What's that you say?" Pretending the kitten was speaking. "Her paw went into your eye. Well, that's your fault for keeping your eyes up. If you shut them tight, it would. Now don't get any more excuses, but listen. Number 2, you pulled Snowdrop away by the tail just as I had put down the saucer of milk before her. What? You were thirsty too, were you? How do you know she wasn't thirsty as well? Now for number 3, you unwound every bit of the worst while I wasn't looking. That's 3 faults, Kitty, and you've not been punished for any of them yet. You know I'm saving up for all of your punishments for Wednesday week." "Suppose they had saved up all of my punishments," she went on, talking to herself more than to the kitten. "What would they do at the end of the year? I should be sent to prison, I suppose, when the day came. Or, let me see, suppose each punishment was going to be given without dinner. Then when that miserable day came, I should have to go without 50 dinners at once. Well, I shouldn't mind that much. I'd rather go without them than eat them. Do you hear the snow against the window panes, Kitty? How nice and soft it sounds. Just as if someone were kissing the snow all the way over the house. I wonder if the snow loves the trees and the fields. It kisses them so gently. And then it covers them snug, you know, with a white quilt, and perhaps it says, 'Go to sleep, darlings, till summer comes again.' And then they wake up in the summer, Kitty. They dress themselves all in green and dance about, whenever the wind blows. Oh, it's so pretty," cried Alice, dropping the ball of wash to clap her hands. I do so wish it was true. I'm sure the woods look sleepy in the autumn, and the leaves are getting brown. Kitty, can you play chess? Now, my dear, I'm asking nicely, because when we were playing just now, you watched just as if you understood it. And when I said check, you purred. Well, it was a nice check, Kitty, and I might have won, if it hadn't been for that nasty knight that came wriggling down among my pieces, Kitty, dear. Let's pretend." And here I wish I could tell you half of the things Alice used to say, beginning from her favorite phrase, "Let's pretend." She had quite the long argument with her sister only the day before, all because Alice had begun with "Let's pretend we're kings and queens." Her sister, who liked that, had argued that they couldn't, because there were only 2 of them, and Alice had been reduced to say, "Well, you can be one of them then, and I'll be the rest." Once she had really frightened her old nurse by shouting suddenly in her ear, "Nurse, do let's pretend I'm a hungry hyena and you're the bone." But this is taking us away from Alice's speech to the kitten. "Let's pretend that you're the Red Queen, Kitty. Do you know that I think if you sat up and folded your arms, you'd look exactly like her. Now do try. There's there." And Alice got the table and set it to model it as a model for it to imitate. However, the thing didn't succeed principally, Alice said, because the kitten wouldn't fold its arms properly. So, to punish it, she held it up against the looking-glass, that it might see how sulky it was. "And if you're not directly good," she added, "I'll put you through the looking-glass into the looking-glass house. How would you like that? Now, if you'll only attend, Kitty, not talk so much, I'll let you know all of my ideas about Looking-Glass House. First, there's a room you can see through the glass. That's just the same as our drawing room, only the things go the other way. I can see all of it when I get up on the chair, all but the little bit just behind the fireplace. Oh, I do so wish I could see that bit. I want so much to know whether they've got a fire in the winter. I can never tell, unless it smokes and then comes up and do. But that may only be pretense, just to make it look as if it had a fire. Well then, the books are something like our books, only the words go the wrong way. I know that because I've held up one of our books to the glass and they hold up one in the other room. How would you like to live in the Looking-Glass House, Kitty? I wonder if they give you milk there. Perhaps the Looking-Glass milk isn't as good to drink. But oh, Kitty, now we come to the passage. You can see just a little piece of the passage in the Looking-Glass House if you part of our drawing room. Why, it's very like our passage as far as you can see, only it may be quite different on beyond. Oh, Kitty, how nice would it be if we could only get through into the Looking-Glass House? I'm sure it's got, such beautiful things in it. Let's pretend there's a way of getting through it. Somehow, Kitty. Let's pretend the glass has got all soft like gauze, so that we can get through it. Why, it's turning into sort of a mist now, I declare, and it'd be easy enough to get through. She was up on the chimney piece while she said this, though she hardly knew how she had got there, and certainly the glass was beginning to melt away, just like a bright silvery mist. In another moment Alice was through the glass, and had jumped lightly down into the Looking-Glass room. The very first thing she did was to look to see whether there was a fire in the fireplace, and she was quite pleased to find that there was a real one, blazing away as brightly as the one she had left behind. So I shall be warm here, as I was in the old room, thought Alice. Warmer, in fact, because there will be no one here to scold me away from the fire. Oh, what fun it'll be when they come see me through the glass here and can't get at me. Then she began looking about and noticed what could be seen from the old room was quite common and uninteresting, but that all the rest was as different as possible. For instance, the pictures on the wall next to the fire seemed to be all alive, and in the very clock in the chimney piece, you can only see the back of it in the looking-glass, had got a face of a little old man, and grinned at her. They don't keep this room as tidy as the other, thought Alice to herself as she noticed several of the chessmen down on the hearth among the cinders. But in another moment, with a little "oh" of surprise, she was down on her hands and knees watching them. The chessmen were walking about 2 and 2. Here are the Red King and the Red Queen, Alice said in a whisper for fear of frightening them. And there are the White King and the White Queen sitting on the edge of the shovel. And here are 2 castles walking arm in arm. Oh, I don't think they can hear me, she went on, as she put her head closer, and I'm nearly sure they can't see me. I feel somehow as if I were getting invisible. Here, finding something squeaking behind the table, behind Alice, and made her turn her head just in time to see one of the white pawns roll over and begin kicking. She watched it with great curiosity to see what would happen next. It's the voice of my child, the White Queen cried out, as she rushed past the king so violently that she knocked him over among the cinders. My precious Lily, my imperial kitten! She began scrambling wildly at the side of the fender. Imperial fiddlesticks, in his nose, which had been hurt by the fall, and he had a right to be a little annoyed with the queen, for he was covered in ash from head to foot. Alice was so very anxious to be of use, and as the poor little Lily was nearly screaming herself into a fit, she hastily picked up the queen and set her on the table by the side of her noisy little daughter. She gasped and sat down. The rapid journey through the air had quite taken away her breath, and for a minute or two she could do nothing but hug little Lily in silence. As soon as she had recovered her breath a little, she called out to the White King, who was sitting sulkily among the bushes, "The volcano." "What volcano?" said the king, looking up anxiously into the fire as if he thought that was the most likely place to find one. "Blew me up," panted the queen. who was just a little out of breath. "Mind you come up the regular way. Don't get blown up." Alice watched the White King as he slowly struggled up from bar to bar, till at last she said, "It'll be hours and hours people at this to help you hat." But the king took no notice of the question, and it was quite clear that he could neither hear nor see her. So Alice picked him up very gently and lifted him across more slowly than she had lifted the queen, that she mightn't take his breath away. But before she put him on the table, she thought she might as well dust him a little. He was so covered in ashes. She said afterwards that she had never seen in all her life such a face as the king made when he found himself in the air by invisible hand and being dusted. He was far too much astonished to cry out. But his eyes and his mouth went on getting larger and larger and rounder, till her hands shook so with laughing that she nearly let him drop upon the floor. "Oh, please don't make such faces, my dear," she cried out, quite forgetting that the king couldn't hear her. "You make me laugh so that I can hardly hold on to you. And don't keep your mouth open so wide. All the ashes will get into it. There, now I think you're tidy enough," she added, as he smoothed his hair and set him upon the table near the queen. The king immediately fell flat on his back and lay perfectly still, and Alice was a little alarmed at what she had done, and went round the room to see if she could find any water to throw over him. However, she could find nothing but a bottle of ink. When she got back with it, she had found he had quite recovered, and he and the queen were talking together in frightened whisper, so low that Alice could hardly hear what they said. The king was saying, "I assure you, my dear, I turn cold into the very ends of my whiskers," to which the queen replied, "You haven't got any whiskers." The horror of that moment, the king went on, "I shall never, never forget." "You will, though," the queen said, "if you don't make a memorandum of it." Alice looked on with great interest as the king took an enormous memorandum book out of his pocket and began writing. A sudden thought struck her. She shook, and she took hold of the end of the pencil, which came some way over his shoulder, and began writing for him. The poor king looked puzzled and unhappy, and struggled with the pencil some time without saying anything. But Alice was too strong for him, and at last he panted out, "My dear, I really must get a thinner pencil. I can't manage this one bit. It writes all manner of things that I don't intend." "What manner of things?" said the queen, looking over. "The book in which Alice had put the White Knight is sliding down the poker. He balances very badly." "That's not a memorandum of your feelings." There was a book lying near Alice on the table, and while she sat watching the White King, for she was still a little anxious about him, and had the ink ready to throw over him in case he fainted again, she turned over the leaves to find that some parts she could read. "For it's all in some language I don't know," she said to herself, for it was like this, which is the right way for you. She puzzled over this for some time, but at last a bright thought struck her. "Why, it's a looking-glass book, of course, and I will hold it up to a glass, and the words will all go the right way again." This was the poem that Alice read. "Jabberwocky, 'twas brillig and the slithy toves, did gyre and gibble in the wave. All mimsy were the borogoves, and mome-raths outgrabe. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the claws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the Jubjub bird, and shun the Frumious Bandersnatch. He took his vorpal blade in hand, long time the man's-lock fellow he sought. So rested he by the Tumtum tree, and stood a while in thought. And as the uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock with eyes of flame came whiffing through the tulgey wood, and warbled as it came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through, the vorpal blade went snicker-snack. He left it dead, and with his head he went galloping back." "And thus hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy. O frabjous day, callooh, callay," he chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wave, all mimsy were the borogoves, and the moan raths outgrave. It seems rather pretty, she said when she had finished it, but it's rather hard to understand. You see, she didn't like to confess even to herself that she couldn't make it all out. Somehow it seems to fill my head with ideas, only I don't exactly know what they are. However, somebody killed something, that's clear at any rate. But oh, thought Alice, suddenly jumping up, if I don't make haste, I shall have to go back through the looking-glass before I've seen what the rest of the house is like. Let's have a look in the garden first. She was out the room in a moment and ran down the stairs, or at least it wasn't exactly running, but a new invention for getting downstairs quickly and easily, as Alice said to herself. She just kept the tips of her fingers on the handrail and floated gently down without even touching the stairs with her feet. Then she floated on through the hall and would have gone straight out the door if she hadn't caught the doorpost. She was getting so much floating air, and was rather glad to find herself walking in a natural way again. And that is the end of chapter 1. I hope you all enjoyed, and I shall be reading the rest of the book chapter by chapter as such a fashion.